Hey there, Jeff Manchester, Manchester Music, Jeff Manchester. In this video, we're going to do 5 tools that I am really enjoying. It's been a while since I did a video like this. I did one way back, and I've since acquired more libraries. I'm playing with more stuff. I'm even digging up stuff that I used a long time ago and never even talked about on the channel. So these are 5 tools, not necessarily sample libraries, but things that I love that I use a lot. Some of them are new, like this one. This is Veer Harmonix Expansion One for their cello series from the Soul Capture series, which, if you know anything about them, I talk a lot about the violin. They do the solo violin, bohemian violin. It's beautiful. This is the cello side. It just got an expansion, so we have new tech, new performance styles in this instrument. If you don't know, the thing I love about this Soul Capture series is that instead of, as a company, sampling the instrument from 8,000 different mic positions, what these guys have done is they've done that, but they've also sampled the performance. So this has a very distinct performance style, and the tech behind it, the scripting, allows you to just play and not worry about where your fingers are so you can get ready for another key switch or whatever. All that happens on the back end. You just kind of have to trust the instrument to make those moves and to switch articulations on the fly as you just be creative. So I'm going to show you 3 different playing styles here. We have Improv, Saradash, I don't know how to pronounce this one over here. It's good for very sort of attack-heavy, quick legato playing styles, and Emotive, which sounds a little bit like Flautando from the Spitfire libraries. It's like feather-light touches of the bow on the strings. It's very beautiful. So let's just start off with Improv. Keep an eye on this center circle here so you can see the articulations changing under the hood. I'm just playing, I'm just improvising. The instrument does a lot of the sort of creative work and makes this sound very natural and fluid. So I'm just going to mess around. This is by no means a company demo. Anyway, Cello Expansion One. So as you see, again, articulations move under the hood. You don't have to do that work. You just have to play, which is wonderful. This is the next sort of performance style. Saradach, I'm not sure how to say it. I keep embarrassing myself. It's very much, again, for, what have I written down here? Aggressive playing styles, fast, quick variations, forceful variations. Fast legatos. That's what you want to lean towards. That's what the marketing talks about anyway in their videos. So this is what that sounds like in this new kind of style here. I can key switch to get there. I don't like key switching, so I just took my mouse, my trackpad, boom, went on that performance style. Have a listen. So much grittier right away. So this last playing style here, a motive, very delicate. I like to play in the upper register for this one. The softer you play, I feel the more you get out of this sort of performance style. So just, again, improvising. Wonderful, lovely. Okay, so that is the first expansion for the cello in the Soul Capture series, Bohemian Cello. The way it works is you kind of get in on the ground floor. So if you started before any expansions with the basic instrument, I think it's like €149 or something, and then you get all the expansions for free. The more expansions are added to the library, to the instrument, the higher up in price it goes. So the incentive there is to get in on the ground floor, so to speak, like an investment a little bit. So Soul Capture has the violin, the cello. The cello is in its first expansion. I believe the violin is also in its first expansion. I don't know if it's at expansion number 2. I think there's 4 expansions on the horizon, but anyway, it's just beautiful. It's not contact, it's UVI, so just know that going in, but it's gorgeous. It just came out. I'm super impressed with it. So the next thing I want to show you is Metropolis Arc 3. This came out maybe a month ago. That's not Metropolis Arc 3. Let me load it up here. So this is the third in the Arc series, Arc 1. It's all about like really powerful, intense, I guess, orchestration. It's not quite hybrid library where we have like distorted drums and synths and like, you know, and huge wide strings. It's more getting the biggest out of like a real orchestra that we can, but with an emphasis on the low end. So Arc 1 was all about that. Arc 2 was like especially all about that bass. Arc 3, it's called the Beating Orchestra because it's all about percussive styles of orchestration. So, and the one thing I really like about Arc 3 is if you go to the multis, like these are really inspirational. Like a lot of the sample library companies like to say, oh, you know, like instant inspiration, just get blah, blah, blah. This I really feel is truly instantly inspirational. So I'm going to load the first multi. Multi is just a sort of set of different instruments and articulations, sort of like a preset pack, if you will. Full orchestra Arctics. I can't pronounce anything. Yes, I do want to replace this. I'll press yes. It'll load into the RAM here. So I'm not going to play this like, you know, this isn't something I'd write. I just want to give you guys a feel of the sound. So a lot of percussive elements were sampled for this, so like taiko drums, but also sections of the orchestra were sampled with a kind of percussive edge, with a very attack-heavy edge. So I like to play this thing like a bit of a drum, you know. So this is just one basic patch here. So right away we get our woods, our strings, our horns, high and low in all sections, and we can key switch things down here, so we get different kind of sounds. Go to the basic when we get a nice sort of burst. Really full-bodied, beautiful, really intense sounding. One of the things, this is the library that Daniel James was on the show floor at NAMM talking about. He said it has huge balls. He said it like 4 times. It was hilarious. It caused a lot of well, not a lot of, I mean, it's not controversy really, but it was just funny because he's a funny guy. Go into one of these bass and accents patch, for example, or multi rather. We're going to get rid of all those multis that we just brought in, and then we bring this guy in here. How does this sound? So we have drums mixed in with piano staccatissimo, string quartet staccatissimo. I hate performing live in these videos. I feel like a kid doing math in front of the class on the chalkboard. Anyway, let's go to some of the percussion impacts. This is really cool. We get the taiko here. And just again, that huge sort of stereographic sound. All right, let's see. Are they all loaded? Where are we here? Huge. Massive sound. Let's go to upbeats and flutter tongue, and then we'll move on to another library. But just, this is one of those libraries that costs what it sounds like. These guys are very expensive, but I feel they are worth their money. Unlike some sample libraries that are very expensive and just iteratively different from other sample libraries that company has come up with. Listen to that beautiful flutter tongue on all those instruments. Beautiful. I mean, that could be a great accent to something happening on the screen. Beautiful. Anyway, a very quick taste of Arc 3. It's just gorgeous. Go get it. What's next here? Yes, the switching gears a little bit. Here's one of my old standbys. This is one of the very first sample libraries that I ever picked up. It's from Sonic Couture, and it's called Array Umeda, I think. It just sounds beautiful. I have a note repetition MIDI trick here, but I don't need to use it right now. It just sounds so real, especially if you have good speakers or headphones on, you're listening right now. One of the things I love about this is this kind of sound, this jazzy noir kind of sound is coming back a little bit, especially in the work of Sean Callery, who's doing stuff like Jessica Jones and who worked on Homeland. This kind of jazzy vibe is coming back in, so I just felt like dusting off this sample library and using it again. And with something like a note repeater, you can get some interesting sounds. So what the note repeater is doing is just going up, I think by 10 steps or so. And when it gets to the very top of this library, Sonic Couture has programmed in some kind of cool, I'm not really sure what they're called. You hear that? It sort of trickles down. So when you get to this high C up here, if I go up an octave, so when you have the note repeater going, it goes all the way up to that octave when you're playing even down low. Once it gets there, it goes down this lovely little sort of like little brook, just babbles right back down. So it got to that D and went down for us. Anyway, just super fun to experiment with, and I think it sounds absolutely gorgeous. So I don't know what it costs, but I'll leave a link in the description. It's one of the first things that I bought, and it is to this day still with me. It's fun to dust something off like that. The next thing I want to show you is, okay, I get it. I work for Isotope. This is not... The irony of showing this isn't lost on me. If you've noticed, I've made an effort not to talk about Isotope stuff on this channel, not because it's not awesome, but it's just a little sleazy to do that. So, but the time has come because I think this is a super valuable tool that has not really had a proper introduction to the composing world yet, and I want to talk about it now. It's called Tonal Balance Control, and we came up with this with Ozone 8 and Neutron 2 Advanced. So you need the advanced versions of those products to get this. You get this if you want just Neutron 2 Advanced. You get this if you just want Ozone 8. It comes with Tonal Balance Control. What it is a kind of visual analysis tool that's really smart. What happened was we sent a whole bunch of thousands of really well-regarded mixes into a neural network, and it divided up, how do I put this? It divided up sometimes by genre, different energy profiles from low, mid, and high. These are really, really well-regarded mixes, and from that data we boiled it down into three kind of genre targets. So we have bass heavy, and we have, I'll explain what this means in a minute, we have modern, and we have orchestral, which is what, you know, this channel is kind of all about. And you see these green overlays shifting around. What these represent are the kind of typical ranges of energy in these genre curves that we came up with. I should mention you don't have to use the ones that we came up with. You can click here and then go to Create Custom Target Curve from Audio File, or you can bring in a whole bunch of songs that you love that you think are really tonally balanced, and then you can see that energy represented in these quadrants. And then you'll see in a moment some white lines will come up, and I'll play this track, and you'll see the white lines here. And these lines represent where your track stacks up against this orchestral genre target. So low mid, high, and low. Low is from 0 to 250 hertz. 250 to 2000 is the low mid. 2000 or so, I think, up to 8, and then 8 to 20K for the high. And we get two different views, fine and broad. And again, you don't have to stick to these targets. Upload your own, and you can save them, and they'll always show up. But what this is doing is it's looking at the overall energy content and profile of your track and telling you where you stack up. So if you love Hans Zimmer, if you love, I hate to say this, the late Johan Johansson, he died he might have died earlier, but it was just announced today. One of my favorite composers. If you love his music, you can download it, bring it into Tonal Balance Control, create a custom target curve, and then you sort of, see where you stack up, see where you fit. So if I just play this track, one that I wrote, and if I press space, we'll see after a little while these lines settle into those areas to see if we have too much low end, or too much low mid, or too much high mid, or too little high, or whatever. And it's something that needs to be maybe seen better than explained by me. So right now we're sort of all high mid. That's why it's kind of so active in there. And then as we introduce more instruments that has different frequency content, these other things kind of come alive here. So the bass is going to come back down. I think the impact there knocked it out of whack a little bit. So the bottom line is, what are we seeing and what do we want to do about it? So right now I can tell that my low end is kind of out of whack. It's definitely well north of this green overlay. And one of the cool things we can do is scrub around here. And if I use Option and click, I can actually scrub around the frequency spectrum and see, what's contributing to the low end here. Go anywhere I want. So I know definitely that I've got my, my bass tracks are what's causing trouble here. So I can go right over to my bass over here, see what's happening over here. Solo this. Oop, I hit automation. So, I could just turn the bass follow down, or this is where the beauty of tonal balance control comes in here. If I want to make an EQ move to get some of that bass under control, I don't have to go to the channel. As long as I have a neutron on that channel, I can go over here to bass follow, which is my bass track. I should show you right now. Here's my bass track. There's my bass follow track. It says bass follow. We can call it something else. Bass, bass sounds like that. And then I go into tonal balance and I go choose bass sounds. It helps if I actually choose it. Click up, and then there is my bass's EQ. So I don't have to go to my bass track to EQ it. I can do it all from tonal balance as long as it's talking to the neutron on that channel. So now I can press play, and I can EQ this a little bit to get that line to come down a little. I'll just get a loop going here. I'm going to do a high pass just to shave off a lot of that sub. I think it was just a bit too subby. Let's get a different loop going here. And that line's definitely coming down a little bit after shaving off a lot of that low end. Of course, we're looping, so it's going to go back and throw off our meter a little bit. So now that line is a lot lower than it used to be. I can actually bypass the EQ right from here so we can hear what it sounded like before. Watch that line jump up here. So here's without the EQ move that I made. See how that line is kind of well north here of where it used to be on the overlay. Okay, so now I'll start the loop again and unbypass that bass EQ that I just did. So we can see that the line from the bass is now in check. The goal isn't to get it here in the center. I'm pointing at the screen like an idiot. Use my mouse. The goal is not to get the line here in the center. It's just to have it somewhat inside of the typical bounds of that green overlay. And you might be asking, why do we want to do this? Like, why do we want to make sure that our track is tonally balanced? Well, one of the sort of giveaways to your track translating well between devices, whether it's a phone or a laptop speaker or, God forbid, earbuds or, a big club system or in a theater, is, a pleasant distribution of all the energy. All the frequencies that make up all the instruments in your track. If those are arranged from low to high in a really elegant way, chances are your listener's going to get a super consistent experience no matter what device they're using to hear your mix. So that's one of the reasons you want to get a nice tonally balanced track, and this helps you do it, I think, in a really great way. Our highs, for example, were a little bit off. We didn't have a lot of presence there from 10K and above. So one thing I can do, again, if I have an ozone or a neutron, right? I have an ozone on my master bus. It's right here on the stereo bus. So it's not really doing anything now. I can go into tonal balance control, turn it on. I can go over and talk to my ozone, which I just showed you on the master bus. And maybe I will create a loop over here and add a little bit of 10K to see if I can get up in that range. Add a bit of a shelf there. So, you might have noticed that nothing happened. It's probably not because the information that I do have frequency-wise isn't pronounced enough. It's just that I don't have a lot of stuff there. I don't have a lot of stuff of instruments with energy in that range. And how I discovered that is by doing the option click thing. Like, you don't really hear anything as opposed to when you go to the high mids. There's all kinds of information there. But here, there ain't much. So that's why. So a boost on that end would be kind of futile, right? But anyway, load up, your favorite track or whatever, a Hans Zimmer track or whatever. And once you've got your mix ready to go, shove tonal balance on your master bus and then just EQ to it, whatever. I think it's a great way to have a kind of a gut check, right? Before your mix goes to the market or before it goes in your SoundCloud to make sure that it's like tonally balanced. Anyway, that is tool number 4, and probably the last time we'll talk about isotope on this channel because it's a weird feeling. So let's go over to the 5th one. And to me, the 5th library, or the 5th tool that I'm still loving, even though I gave it a little bit I was a little bit frustrated, and I still am frustrated with the kind of with the model that Spitfire is using here. It's got to be without a doubt the chamber waves, which is the brand new Chamber Evolutions thing that Olafur Arnolds and Spitfire collaborated on. I still think it's really gorgeous, and the waves specifically because these waves really make it so that you don't have to worry about automating your rising action, falling action with the dynamics or whatever. Those still come into play. They still really help when you're composing. But if I just put my hand down here, we get the ascent and then the decay. I don't have to program that, which is really helpful. So right now I have it going through a chord trigger. I think it's just triggering, minor 7/9 structure. And it just really sounds beautiful. I did a whole video, by the way, on this a little while ago featuring these libraries, but I think they're pretty gorgeous. Just brings a smile to my face. So yeah, this is the 4th one. I think it's really beautiful. I think its last day for sale, I think, was Friday. Now it's back at a regular price. But anyway, I just think they really killed it with the wave section. And if you double it up with an Evo and add the chord trigger there, I think you get some really cool creative possibilities. So those would be the 5 tools that I'm loving now. I know one of them wasn't really a sample library, but got to switch it up. And I think that it's the tonal balance control thing. Once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy to understand. But once you really master it, I think it'll help you feel more confident when you're mixing and mastering stuff, especially at home. If you don't have a really good room or like speakers you can trust, you put that thing on. It's a nice visual gut check to know where you fall when you're trying to compare your track to, one of the greats. So anyway, thanks very much for watching. If you have any questions or whatever, hit me up. I'm going to leave everything I'm talking about in the description to this video, so you can click links and find the stuff that I mentioned. Anyway, take care.